Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Friday in the Riv. And don't forget about the lighting. I don't know what I was running late today. I just got in, so we're gonna have to live with the shine on my head and everything else. I gotta put the uh,
Yeah.
the sunscreen on it or something. I don't know, but. So I guess CJ, you were telling me earlier today when we spoke that we stayed in the top five. Uh, we're number four. We're number four. What? In what? Everybody may ask. What are we in? What did we get to the top five in? Well, you know it can't be a good category. What is it? It is crime. We're number four in Massachusetts in crime. That's even with them watering down statistics all over the country. Yeah, look good. Yeah, yeah. It's just wear sunglasses so you don't get blinded by the reflection off my head. But we're number four in the state. We're even ahead of Brockton, and Brockton's always in the news. And CJ's right now. He's doing something. He's got something. But there was a shooting earlier today. Yeah. Oh boy, what a surprise! Yeah, Paul Coogan. Paul Coogan's been he everything he does. All he ever does is talk. Nothing ever gets done. Homelessness, 6 years. I don't know what happened to CJ. Well,
I'm here. I'm sorry about that. I had a
okay.
call I had to take. They were supposed to call me. They were supposed to call me at 4:00 Eastern time, not 4:00 Central time.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the world of Buttes.
Yeah.
Well, I was telling them we made the top five, number four
Yes, I
in
know.
crime, and Paul Coogan is doing it again. We'll get to that later, but let's talk about he got interviewed today, and as usual, he was just throwing bullshit balls all over the place.
Let me stop you there, okay? Because number one, the interview was supposed to be live. It ended up being taped. Okay? The playback was filled with advertisements. There were softball questions, nothing pertinent. Not like they asked Carlos. Not like they asked Boomer. Okay? For the longest time, Mike was on Paul's shit list. Okay? Couldn't get any information, which we're still on that shit list, as we know. Couldn't get any information. Was complaining about it. Now, all of a sudden, he can get all the information. Whose ass is he kissing? What deal did he cut? Obviously, I gave him a bit of information, which we're going to discuss on this show shortly. And he didn't ask a question about it. What's wrong, Mike? Are you afraid you're going to get cut off again? I have lost all respect for Fall River Reporter and for Mike Sylvia. Obviously, this was a give me interview. It was a propaganda interview right from the get-go. And as many people have said, it was probably edited. And it probably was.
Well, the other two, Boomer and Carlos, were live, I believe, right?
Yes, they were.
And whenever you get one of those, we know what happened with Kamala. Remember one of those interviews they had, and then when they finally, after she got beat, they found out how much they edited the things out and everything else. Look, Paul Coogan will never answer a question. Suppose he said we got 100 homeless and now,
homeless.
and I saw one of my former. Look, this guy's been in for 6 years. He's done absolutely nothing about anything.
And then he had the balls. He had the balls to bring up the APA money, and he said, we did a report. We did a study on where this money went. And the people of Fall River need to know. They need to know. This went to every department. And the people of Fall River saved money. No, your friends got money.
Yeah, your friends got money. And listen, Chris Peckham was giving us a report on, in real time
That's right.
until they threw until they shut him down.
That's right.
And we all know where the opera money went. We went over it on a show a few times.
That's right.
So, this is the typical Coogan bullshit. He's been in for 6 years. 6 years. I'm going to be transparent. He wasn't. I'm going to be honest. He's not. Everything he promised, I'm going to give you a tax break. All we've done, he's doubled taxes, and then almost double the budget, 90% increase. No problem in Fall River has been addressed. No program has been put forth. We remain number 4 in crime. We're ahead of Brockton. I think we're ahead of Boston, but of course I don't trust Boston's figures. They're like DC. But yeah, Biden. Yeah. Oh, did you get? You want to put that new? Speaking of Biden, put up that new post.
The new ad from the ABC committee. Okay.
I'm going to tell you something.
This is brought to you by the ABC committee.
Paul Coogan, Joe Biden. This is probably the only campaign ad that he could be upset about, because even he's not as bad as Paul Coogan. Paul Coogan has done zero. And look what he's doing now. While he's running for re-election, the city council shot down.
Yeah, you're right, George. I watched it. And did you hear what he said? Well, we're not going to do anything right now because the state's got to do something. And we don't want to put something in place that we may have to stop. And then he was asked, well, the city council has a resolution in place to deal with assisted living. And Paul said, well, I think that's going to be taken out. He knows how the city council is going to vote. Yeah, because Chris Ponti's mother came out and endorsed him.
Listen, he's a do-nothing. And he's going to wait for the state to know what they do. He knows what they're going to do already, because Carol Fiola, he knows everything the state's going to do because he's their puppet. This is let's put it off. Well, you've put everything you promised off for 6 years, and you're asking the general public to give you another 2 years of making promises you don't keep. Now, let's see what he did. They went in for a building for EMS. And the city council shot it down.
That's right.
And then within, I don't know if it's the next day, allegedly it was the next day, but within days of them saying no, he signed the lease, which is illegal. Right. Which is illegal. You can't sign a lease.
He does not have the money for.
He does not have money. You can't fund a contract that has not been funded by the city council. Remember, right, Paul, you sent a letter trying to make the city council shoot down the arbitrator's award for the firefighters, which is illegal. And even your buddy Rumsey said you can't do that because you're bound by law to present it without comment.
And then it was said that was a mistake and it shouldn't have been done.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, that's why he signed it, because it was a mistake.
And that's why he handed it out in the city council chamber.
He handed it out to the city council, a mistake. Listen, Paul Coogan is the master of lying. I mean, if he was Pinocchio, his nose would be in another galaxy. If you attached yourself to the point of Coogan's nose, you would be out there with the Star Trek team. Out there where no man is there gone yet. No man is there gone before, But this guy is so full of crap. In 6 years, he's done nothing. Yeah, he's given out a lot of money, but he signed the contract. And now, behind the scenes, they're looking for a loophole to get it. We're going to give him a license. We're going to give him a lease. We're going to do this. You can't do that. Read the law, chapter 44. Look it up about budgets. You can't
let's
alter a
not
budget.
just talk about that license bit. Allegedly, Matt Thomas has been directed to find the loophole, to find the money. Okay? Allegedly. A lawyer has allegedly been asked to violate the law,
And he
which would be
will.
nothing new for the city law department. But from what I've been told, because I've still been digging all day, the property owner dumped $300,000 allegedly into that building. One of Paul's friends. And they didn't want him to lose the money.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll take a shot at, that's a good deal, CJ. You and I will have to go out and try to remortgage our houses, scrape up $300,000. If we can have a guaranteed 5-year lease that we're going to make $1.25 million on. Okay, I'll give up $300,000 for $1.25 million any day of the week. And yeah, disbarred. But this is the problem. He's got a lawyer. They talked about a license. I called a very good lawyer, not in Fall River either. One of the best lawyers in the country. And I told him about what is alleged. We know what's going on, and this is exactly what he told me. He said, "You know what a license is?" And I said, "Yes, a license." He said, "No." He said, "You're right." He said, "But what you can do when you talk about a license is you can substitute the word license with permission. A license is permission to do something." And he said, if they give you a driver's license, they're giving you permission to drive in the state of Massachusetts. If they give you a license to store chemicals in your building, you have a license to store those chemicals. However, any license can be revoked. You don't drive properly, you get your license revoked. You don't store your chemicals properly, you get your license revoked. You have at will tenancy, that can be revoked. That means at will. So the problem is, it's not a license. They're looking for every excuse to circumvent the law. And then I asked them a very, very, I think, important and salient question. I said, well, what can a city council do? And his answer was, grow a set. He said, if the mayor violates the law and you allow him to, he will be allowed to violate the law. If somebody breaks into your house and you don't call the police and press charges, you're going to lose your money. The council has allowed Paul Coogan to violate the law for 6 years and never brought him to court. And this attorney said, well, if they don't do it, the taxpayers are on the hook, and he gets away with it again.
But remember, the city council was also advised many moons ago, okay, that the only person who is authorized to initiate legal action is city corporate counsel. That's what they were told.
And that's not true.
I know that, and you know that. And remember, we've also been told that the city corporate counsel is the mayor's attorney, not the city council's attorney.
Yeah.
So the mayor
can't have your cake and eat it too.
That's right.
You can't be the mayor's lawyer and say that the city council can initiate it. There have been city councils that have sued mayors, and there have been mayors that have basically taken city councils to court. We have federal government. Well, that's the whole problem, Alphonse. If people do not, and that's the problem, the regular people can't afford to go to court. City council has a sworn obligation to work on behalf of the taxpayers. If they allow this guy to give another friend, he's already got one lease that he's going to make $1.25 million. They're going to give him another lease. So at 1.25 and 1 is $2.5 million. And we get to maintain the building. He doesn't have to. We maintain the building, which is absurd. It's like you moving into an apartment and they say, well, we need first month, last month, and a security deposit. If you wreck the damn property, you're not getting any of that money back. That's so right. we get to use his building, and we pay, and we maintain it. So this is a sweetheart deal. Everybody knows it's a sweetheart deal. It's for somebody that we know. Basically, he runs virtually all his times there, or three-quarters of his times there. So this is the old adage: white people get rich in Fall River, not because they're smart. It's because they tell them, buy a building, we'll give you a low interest loan. I wonder who that mortgage is with, because I got a pretty good guess, but I'm not going to guess. We'll check it out. Let's see what the mortgage is on that building. Maybe he bought it cash. I don't know. But let's see where the mortgage is. And so, but you buy a building, you'll scrape up the money. You'll figure out how to get it. If they tell you, look, you put up $300,000, you're going to make $1.25 million. Last time I checked and did math, that's a pretty good deal. So you're basically making nearly $1 million, $950,000. So, and I did that in my head. So $950,000. That's a pretty good profit. You're not bad. That's more than 300%. So, okay. But this is what happens in this city. We got a criminal mayor. This guy doesn't give a shit. And we got a council with the bobbleheads that have to go, like Kilby and Hart and Raposo, that are not going to say, let's take this guy to court. They're going to go, well, just let him violate the law. Who's going to be on the hook? The taxpayers. Taxpayers are going to be on the hook. And why are they getting this building? And I believe Beth Faunce referred to the EMS as her business.
Her business. That's right.
My business.
My business.
I am building my business. Well, it's not your business, Beth. I know you as a person. You're okay. But that's way out of line. I believe Sean Kadim said you are not running a business. This is a city department. And that city department is called EMS. What does E stand for? Emergency? Am I correct in that assumption, CJ?
That's what I've always been told.
Medical services.
That's right.
Now, Beth Faunce has decided to start a business doing transports for non-emergency situations. And it is alleged that they signed a contract with the hospital. Yeah, they raided Bolton's house. Yeah, they're looking for security documents. But they signed it without... Now, I have a question. I happen to be on the Fall River Fire Department when they created EMS. And what was it for? It was to provide the citizens of Fall River with a quick response emergency medical system, not to transport people in non-life-threatening situations. You've had to leave the hospital, CJ, and arrange for your transportation. I've had to leave hospitals after surgeries and get private ambulance transportation. I didn't call the Fall River Fire Department. Now they're in bed with Charlton. I want to know who signed that contract. Did Beth Faunce enter into a contract to do a service as a non-emergency service that the taxpayers are now going to have to pay them to work to make money for who? It goes into the enterprise fund, and they use that to get more pay raises and more money directed at them to buy buildings and get pay raises and do everything for themselves.
And that's the argument. That's the argument they're presenting.
Maybe let's look at the history of this monster that they've created. Now, first of all, it was our pal who is now running for DA, Seth Akins, who told him, no, don't put them in, even though they promised to put them in the fire department, which would have cost a lot less money. Now that department, and I'm giving you ballpark figures now, so don't hold me to the figures, but
for discussion purposes only.
Discussion purposes only. They had around, I don't know, 40 to 60 people, and now they got 100 and something. So they've increased 40 people. But now they have 3 deputy chiefs, 8 captains that are making $114,000 a year. They got 1 captain in charge of scheduling, and they got a bunch of lieutenants to do 100 men. Now, I don't know what you need a scheduling guy for. You set the schedule for the year. The fire department's got their schedule. Whatever shift you're in, you look at your schedule. Police department's got their work schedule. That's it. It's done. These are cushy positions given out by the Coogan administration, and these giant pay raises to people, and they're overmanaged. Years ago, we ran EMS pretty well with 2 people on an ambulance running to an ambulance call. Now we got supervisors, captains, lieutenants, everybody driving there. We got all kinds of supervision. Do we have a captain in charge of toilet paper? I don't know. But who's paying for it? The taxpayer. Is this what you pay your tax money for? I'm not paying for a private ambulance service. If I got an emergency and I call the fire department and ask for a medical assist, I want an emergency medical assist. The people on there are paramedics. Okay? They're paramedics. And they're there to provide emergency medical care, not to transport people that are going to Boston or getting released from the hospital from Boston. That's what private ambulance services is for. And they're going to run a business? Well, I'm going to tell you what, counsel. If they're going to run a private transport business, I want the money to go not into their fund, but into the general fund and be used for tax relief. How's that for an idea? How's that for an idea?
It's something
you're going to run a business on a city dime. So now the city is a for-profit organization? I thought it was a governmental agency that can't run over budget, that can't deficit spend. I thought we were supposed to be providing service to the city of Fall River, not to Charlton Memorial Hospital, but to the city of Fall River and its residents. Emergency medical services is providing service to the citizens of Fall River. Providing transportation in non-life-threatening situations, not responding to emergency calls, is not what EMS was designed for, and it's not their mission. It's not their job. They want to generate more money so they can buy more shit for themselves. And I'm sorry if they're offended. But 8 captains? 8 captains. For 100 people, and when you go out in an ambulance, you're on your own. They're not riding on an ambulance with them. You don't have a captain riding on an ambulance. What's the captain doing? EMS is kind of like you worked with them, CJ. You go out on an ambulance, they go there, they get an emergency call, they take the vitals, they do what they have to do, they radio in and they transport to the hospital. You don't need all this supervision. Why do you need all supervision? You're not riding on the ambulance with them. They need help, they call. They call for a lift.
And they come in those fancy vehicles.
Yeah, Dodge Chargers and all fancy vehicles. Why do we need all this supervision? Why do we need all these tiers? Well, I can give you the answer. Paul Coogan. Why did Paul Coogan put 4 supervisors in where there was 1 in the school department? This is the Coogan way of buying people off. 114 grand supposedly they're all making. For what? 8 captains in a fire department cover 8 companies. There's only 1 captain per company in a fire department. And we have task forces with 3 apparatus, and we have heavy rescue. So there's 1 captain in each company. And there's a lieutenant in each shift. And they need those lieutenants, unlike that, because these guys are not on their own. To explain it, and maybe I hope the chief of the Washington, D.C. Police Department's watching, I'll explain the chain of command to her. When you go to a fire, a chief officer is supposed to be the incident commander. Ultimately, you may not get there first, but the senior officer is. And then he orders the company, each company who's in charge of their officer, a task at a fire. They are to supervise their firefighters in executing the tactics and strategy to fight a fire. It's a very complex thing to do. So you can say, okay, it's paramilitary. EMS are paramedics. They're totally qualified. They go there, they can dispense medications. I respect the education they have. They can do it. They go there. If they need more help, they know how to call more help. What do we need all these people walking around with rank on their shoulders? If they had gone into the fire department like they were supposed to, you wouldn't have this. But remember, our candidate for DA convinced him to create this monster, and then he tried to get just like Beth Font signed a contract with a hospital to do non-emergency stuff with that hospital, which we're not supposed to do. This guy wanted to do the billing. So he appointed the head of EMS, and then he and the guy he hired were going to have a billing company with all the surrounding communities and say, oh, there's no collusion here. This is totally ethical. That's why he ran out of here like his pants was on fire. He would have lost his law license. But what happened again? The city council's got to grow a set. You can't allow these people to go out the back door and get away with it. And the reality is, like somebody who called the priest said, well, there's no, none of these rapes are confirmed. They are confirmed. Non-disclosure agreements or lack of prosecution does not mean it didn't happen. That's what they did in D.C. They've already exposed that. They were dropping felonies down to misdemeanors. They were not even logging. One of the guys from the police unit in D.C. said they had an incident where somebody was shot at. He wasn't hit, and a company commander says, "Well, just put it down as a traffic incident. Don't put down it was a shooting." And they still have one of the highest crime rates in the world. But this is what they do. We're number 4, so imagine if we kept accurate numbers, how bad we would be. But this whole thing with EMS is out of control. And I don't believe, never did believe from the get-go in enterprise funds, because this is what happens to enterprise funds. They end up becoming a giant magnet for them to try to figure out how they can attract as much money as they can and then say, it's our money. No, it's not your money. It's the people of Fall River's money. We're providing that service. As Sean Kadim said at the council meeting, you are running a city department. But your priority is to get as much money as you can. Well, he knows how to find the schools, Alphonse. I don't think. Yeah, I feel your pain. I feel your pain, and this is the problem. If we're going to provide that service and we're going to make money off that service, I want it to come back to the taxpayers, go into the general fund of the EMAC for us, because I've been in the same boat. CJ's been in the same boat. I had to come back from Boston once when I had hip surgery. I had a hip replacement, and I was in Boston, and they said, well, if you want to go to a rehab clinic, we're going to release you 2 days early, but you got to look for transportation because you're only covered for like 50 miles and, you live more than that. So they're going to charge you like a zillion dollars because you went over the limit. And I went, well, I'm not going to go to a rehab anyway. I'm going to go home. I'll do rehab at home. And then the doctor came in and said, well, we'll evaluate you. And if it looks like you can do it at home, we'll keep you here an extra 2 days in the hospital. Then we'll release you. My son went up to Boston and picked me up, and I came home. And when I got here, they were waiting, and they said, walk up and down the stairs, walk into your shower and stuff like that, to make sure I could negotiate around the house. And then they were coming every day to do whatever they did. But I understand that. But this is the whole thing. That's not an emergency. It's a non-emergency, and you got to get somebody else. For the city of Fall River to go into that purely to make money is transcending the mission of EMS. EMS,
and remember,
provide a layer of medical, a rapid response medical for the people of Fall River.
And
That's
remember,
what taxpayers paid for.
remember, EMS has purchased 7 new ambulances because of this private transport, and they're Group 4. So when they get into an accident or get injured, who's responsible? Who pays for it?
Well,
EMS doesn't pay for it.
well, I can tell you one thing. That's been adjudicated already because firefighters and police officers have already done that with 111F. 111F is the injured on duty statute. It says that you have to be injured in a direct performance of your duty. Your duty as an emergency medical personnel does not extend to non-life threatening. That's not what Fall River does. So if you're doing transport for Charlton Memorial Hospital and you get into a car wreck and you put in for disability retirement that's service connected, you are not entitled to it because you were not doing your job as an EMT. You were doing your job like a private ambulance service. That was not a life-threatening situation. We didn't create EMS, and I was here when it was created. I rode on the ambulance because I was an EMT at the time. We had no paramedics at the time. I rode on the ambulance until I made lieutenant. And then it was about, what was it about? My first day in the ambulance, 2 cardiac arrests, a diabetic coma, a bunch of other things. CJ, you're familiar with all this stuff because you're a medical professional. That's what I went to. I never once was called to say, take this person who just got discharged from Charlton or who's going to go from Charlton to XYZ. That's a private business. It is outrageous that this is being allowed. And the council should step in because they should eliminate the enterprise funds for everybody because they become slush funds. And that's what they do. They have, you know what their impetus is? To get more money to spend on themselves.
That's right.
That's what Beth Ford said. I'm growing my business.
That's right.
So
that's right.
I let those words speak for themselves. My business is to get money for us, not
we got a comment here.
Emergency medical service.
We got a comment here from YouTube. No Jab FJB says Linda and Quid Pro Joe are bobbleheads. Hey,
right. Nobody's arguing with you.
Nobody's arguing, and you're absolutely right.
And you have your right.
But here's the problem we have now. The vote last time was very close on denying the lease, with Cliff Ponte being that swing vote. Now, Cliff Ponte's come out. Well, Cliff Ponte's mother has come out saying, Paul Coogan for mayor, great leadership. Leadership for what? How to take a dump? How to lie? So, does that mean Cliff Ponte's now in the bag for Paul?
Good leadership. I'm telling you. You had to. Brenda, if it costs you 25 for gas, CJ and I will pick you up and bring you over to St. Anne's next time and just buy us 2 hot dogs. I'll tell you what. We'll pick you up. And CJ's got a PhD in nursing, and I'm no longer a certified EMT. I let my certification lapse when I retired. I wasn't going to do that work anymore. But you have a PhD in nursing. We'll take you from primary care to there we'll stop on the way back and get hot dogs for everybody.
And if it's a Monday, we'll go to Newport Creamery.
Great leadership. Let's see. Number 4 in crime. One of the worst school systems in the state.
Violating the law.
Problem unaddressed. And what did
violating the law.
You dismiss the homeless problem?
What was that?
I was just reading that. My husband was there and he wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let him bring me. Yeah, because you didn't have somebody that was supposedly medically qualified. Yeah, I know. That's the BS they throw to make money. This is why we have the most expensive healthcare system in the world, and we are not in the top. Like Boston hospitals are great, and we have some great hospitals in this country, but we have the most expensive healthcare, and we're not at the top of anything because it is what it is. But yeah, maybe.
I firmly agree with you, Jeff. I firmly agree with you.
Yeah, he's probably looking for some kind of property. Remember, he's still in real estate. I mean,
That's right.
He's become a big restaurateur, but he's also still in real estate, I believe. So it casts a pot. But look, it's our fault. We let these people ignore the law. The city council will not bring this to court. And I don't care what Runaway Rumsey says. Nobody can initiate a suit. You know what a great lawyer once told me? He said, at the time, it was a long time ago because it's probably more expensive now. So if I'm giving you the wrong number, it's because that's how long ago I was talking to somebody about a lawsuit. And I was talking to the attorney, and he said to me, all it takes is $19 to file a lawsuit with the court. He said the problem is they're not gonna tell you you're gonna win, or that your lawyer's not going to charge you to litigate it. So that's the problem. He says anybody can file a lawsuit. There's no prohibition against filing a lawsuit. You can file a lawsuit anytime you want. Doesn't mean you're going to win. If you want to take money out of your pocket, as a matter of fact, most of the lawsuits that are filed or not filed, they were probably winnable, but people can't afford it. That's the problem. The average person, there are two tiers of justice, one for the rich, one for the poor. If we were rich, we would actually be talking out of the studio at BCC right now because we'd own it if we sued them. So, but this whole thing is just bizarre. I mean, this guy just doesn't care about the law. He goes around and says, find a loophole. Remember the guy that said he was going to be honest? This is crazy. This is crazy.
Yeah, Cliff said it was a ceremonious position.
Yeah, and that's why that's one of the reasons he lost, besides running a terrible campaign, but not doing anything except sitting in a room and telling with his friends and telling each other how good they were doing, and they weren't, because nobody monitored anything, and we can attest to that. But he also ran against Paul Coogan, so I guess he should be doing mea culpas. I guess his mother must have scolded him for running against such a great mayor. So, but that's their prerogative. I mean, you think he's done a good job. I don't think he's done anything. And everything he talks about is the deflection. Now he knows the exact number of homeless we have and where they are. We got 100 homeless. He knows
where they are. He says they're transient. They move. They keep moving in and out.
There's 100 of them, and he found one of his people that he was in that was in school.
One of his students.
And he's putting them in. How about the other 99 people you left standing here, Paul? You're only going to put the people you know, just like the only people that make money in this city are people you know. Did you put that building up for bid? Did you look for something to?
Yes,
to
the building was put up for bid. The building was put up for bid. The close date was in June. It was RFP 25. Oh God, I can't remember it now. And according to the allegations, the property owner dumped $300,000 into the property to make it compliant with the requirements of the RFP. And because that money was put into that property, allegedly, the lease was signed.
Yeah, but that doesn't make any difference because he put in $300,000. Well, number one, he could have signed an agreement to do it, and contingent on if he got his bid, he would have put the $300,000 $300,000 in and brought it up to code. This is all horse shit. This is like This is like the pirouette dance over here. This is like watching Swan Lake. You got a bunch of ballerinas up there spinning around, and it's you can't call it a. Now they're going to try to call it a license. You can't call it a license. It's not a license. A license is, like as I said, it's just permission to do something. And then they're going to say, well, isn't it mysterious how they always find money? We had a catastrophe. They found $1.5 million in the budget. It wasn't. It's in the budget. Now we got this issue. All of a sudden, they found the money for it in the EMS budget. Well, that's not what it was line item for. And if you look at if you look at the law, by the way, in chapter 44, just in case Thomas wants to look at it, you can't alter a budget. If that's not a line item in there, you can't alter the budget. And the only people that can alter the budget is the city council, because it says it in the law. And it says the city council can reduce or reject, but there can be no alterations or changes in the budget. So without city council approval, it is clear from case law, city council the mayor proposes, the city council disposes. In Attleboro, when the Attleboro firefighters won a JLMC case, they went to the city council. The council would not pay for it, and they had to go back to the bargaining table. No money, no deal. When the city council rejected the money for that building, nobody should have signed that. Paul Coogan violated it. He exceeded the duty of his office. He is not the body that pays the bills. He proposes, they dispose.
He's a scumbag.
He violated and far exceeded his and all the bullshit bricks that they could pile on to try to spin it. And like I said, let's get back to the bottom line. I'm not paying my taxes for a private ambulance service. I'm paying my taxes for somebody who'll get here in a hurry if there's an emergency.
Here's the problem. They're an enterprise account, correct? Correct. Yeah. All right, so here's the problem. They've got these outrageous salaries being paid. Yeah, we know that, Jen. They've been watching forever. I think they have a file that would sit in the Florida Public Library, and it still wouldn't have enough room. And they got to pay for those salaries because as an enterprise fund, it can't come out of the taxpayer dollars. It can't come out of the general fund. So the only way to do that is to keep making more money to keep these people in the high-paying jobs. Otherwise, they'd be in the fire department where they belong.
That's right.
And Beth Ann Font would be on her ass on the street.
Well, that was under false pretenses too, because
that's right.
Alan Rumsey, not Rumsey,
Seth Akins.
Seth Akins convinced them not to do it because he had a deal in the works about the billing. We all know that.
That's right.
I mean, these people are all criminals. And the thing is, they were put in group 4 because the assumption was made they were going to become firefighters.
Correct.
So now they can retire early and put a bigger strain on the retirement system, even though they're not doing a job that group 4 was created for. Group 4 was created for firefighters, police officers, and corrections officers. And I know there are judges and a few other people who are well-connected that got in there because a judge got shot or something like that. And I don't want to hear the stuff that, they should be in there because they are not public safety. They are an emergency medical service. They are not they don't have to go into prison riots when everybody else is running out. And remember, when they take over a prison, I think you worked in a prison system for a while.
Yes, I did.
If there's a riot and they get captured, they don't negotiate. Guards could be killed.
That's it.
So this is their job. That's why they're in group 4. And you're not going to be wrestling with prisoners when you're 65. Same thing with fire and police. They got the early retirement because number one, Firefighters and police officers have a high stress job. They're 2 to 3 times more prone to develop heart disease. They are 2 to 3 times more prone to get lung disease and 2 or 3 times more prone to get cancer. And that's why Group 4 was created. And of course, politicians have now added people. I vehemently disagree with that, because there is a reason why that was created. It was for people who have to sustain them. And I don't want to hear that sometime at some place somebody got shot. That's true. A judge gets shot. But do you see a lot of judges getting shot? No. You can't put them in Group 4 because one judge gets shot, but they do because they got a lot of power. But the same thing is, look, I can tell you what, if we look hard enough, I will be able to find you an electrical inspector that got shot somewhere in some city that walked into the wrong building at the wrong time to inspect a electrical system.
That's
They
right.
might have walked into the middle of a drug deal in the Bronx.
Does
that mean that they face that hazard every single day? No, it's a tragedy that happened, but I could probably find a plumbing inspector, a building inspector, an electrical inspector that got shot by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The problem with those other 3 jobs is they're in the right place at the wrong time. Because if you're in the right place and you got to go into a prison riot, you may not come home that night. If you're on duty on a police department and you get called to a school shooting and you have to go in and get that shooter and rescue those people when everybody else is outside cowering, you may not come home at night. When you're a firefighter and you have to go into a burning building or on a roof of a burning building, you may not come home at night. You can go to work in those 3 jobs and do everything right and die every single day you go to work, because those are hazardous environments.
And correct me if I'm wrong. In a dangerous situation, like a fire, like a shooting, isn't EMS kept off to the side and not allowed to enter the scene?
They're supposed to be.
Thank you.
That's the protocol.
Thank you.
That's
So,
the SOP. Listen, number one, not only EMS, nobody's allowed in the building until you secured the building. I mean, I had a fire one time and I had to secure the building because we had a fatality. And then we had people trying, we had a fire commissioner, right? Get them out of here. We're doing a fire investigation. The building isn't secure. EMS couldn't get in. I wouldn't let EMS.
Was it the bus driver or the bartender?
The bus driver. But, they're not allowed in. They're not supposed to be allowed in. That's not what they do. And at major incidents, you know what they do with EMS? They set up a triage center.
Right.
You know that, CJ.
Right.
You're a medical professional.
Right.
EMS is not running into burning buildings. EMS is not running into prison riots. They're outside, should be setting up a triage center. Or if it's not an area that needs a complete triage center because you got a lot of casualties, you're going to be out there until the building's secured. No chief, no police officer in their right mind should be letting personnel into that environment until it's totally secured. Police officers will secure a perimeter before they go in, and if they're allowing them in before they're secured, they're going to be in a lot of shit. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, before we move on, we've heard a lot of complaints from people who are full of shit about people like Carlos Caesar, who are not natural Americans, which I don't know what the hell that means. That they can't speak English, so they must be stupid. They don't speak proper English, so they must be stupid. They've done nothing, and why should we trust them? Well, let me tell you something. Carlos Caesar, for 30 years, served the Flint and this city. 30 years. Was recognized by 3 mayors. And made significant changes to the Flint Business Association, because he supported businesses, and the Flint community, including the Father Travassos part with Al Lima, the Kathy Assad part. These are all things that he never got credit for. Well, you know what else? Who didn't get credit for a lot of things? God rest his soul.
Al Al's.
Al Alves, that's right. Another man who was not a natural American, who English was not his primary language, and everything that man said on all the years he was on the city council has come to fruition. It's come to pass. It's happened. But I guess he's not worth it, because when he ran for mayor, you know what y'all said? Right there. Right there. That's what you said. Right there.
But remember,
Okay?
he finished third in that election.
That's
and
right.
I think Brad Kilby finished behind him. He almost made it through the primaries. He should have, because I'm going to tell you something about Al. Carlton Viveris is had the most common sense of virtually any mayor we've had in a long time, and he had a GED. Al Alves called every problem in Fall River during that election before it ever happened. He's been right. He was right about everything, and in Fall River deteriorating, he had a great mind for that. But let me read you something that I had to look up because I love this thing. This is what Theodore Roosevelt, one of our greatest presidents, said. And this is very true, especially in today's thing about these people who are not from this country. And this is what he said. There is no room in this country for hyphenated Americanism. When I refer to hyphenated Americans, I do not refer to naturalized Americans. Some of the very best Americans I have ever known were naturalized Americans, Americans born abroad. But a hyphenated American is not an American at all. This is just as true as a man who puts native before the hyphen. As of a man who puts German or Irish or English or French before the hyphen. Americanism is a matter of the spirit and the soul. Our allegiance must purely be to the United States. We must unsparingly condemn any man who holds allegiance to any other. But if he is heartily and singly loyal to the Republic, no matter where he was born, he is just as good an American as anyone else. And then it goes on. That's one of the greatest speeches ever given. He talks about aliens being treated right and becoming great Americans. We have had many Americans in this country that spoke broken English. You know, it doesn't matter. You do not have to be articulate. Paul Coogan's not for somebody who was a teacher, he's not the most articulate person in the world. So, and it's common sense. See, the problem is when you go to work at a job, you have to know the job. When you become a politician and get elected, you got a big opportunity. You can surround you with smart people.
That's right.
You know, John Kennedy was a smart guy, but he surrounded himself with some brilliant people. His cabinet.
He still got a D at Harvard.
Were brilliant. And the thing is that's what you've got to do as a mayor. Carlton Viveris had a GED, but he surrounded himself with people. He created the Fall River Regional Task Force that had people from the business community, from the neighborhood associations, from the banks, from the unions. I was on that committee. I was on the executive board. And he used to discuss things at length with them and listen to their input. And that's what a good leader does. He listens. He filters the information. He talks to experts. You know, you don't have to be a professional firefighter and a professional police officer, a professional guy at trash picking to run a city. All you got to do is be bright enough to listen to people who actually know what they're talking about. It doesn't matter whether you have, who did I say wrote that speech? Theodore Roosevelt. It's called Hyphenated Americans. Just Google it. You'll see it. Hyphenated Americans, Theodore Roosevelt. I believe he gave that speech to the Knights of Columbus. at a Knights of Columbus meeting. But this is the problem you got with people. They think you've got to be some kind of genius to be a man. Oh, you got a common sense. Listen, we keep telling you on the show. I got it right in front of me. I told Paul Coogan 6 years ago he was going to be short for the city's share of healthcare money. This year, they're $2 million short. And they actually said it in front of the council. We were told we did it wrong. Well, you did it wrong for 5 years, even though you were warned. Is that a good man? He was also warned about the trash, and he ignored that for 5 years. So great leadership.
But on today's propaganda report, he said that one of the problems he wants to solve in this term is trash.
Yeah, even though he got warned 6 years ago.
Right.
So, yeah, well, at his rate, you know when he's going to solve it? When he's living in Florida.
Yeah, really.
Retired. So,
Yep, that's for sure. Well, I want to thank you all for watching. It's going to be a very interesting time. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. Because believe me, they don't give a shit about you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy and stay away from the water. Have a great day.